You've, gosh, I'm looking back at how many years we've known one another. It's been quite a while now. And I think it was a William and Mary event. You were practicing your pitch, and gosh, that may have been 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Feels a lot longer because of the pandemic. I'm sure we'll get into how an events-based company was in a perfect storm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun to think about that because there's been so much growth over those last 6 years. I would say most amount of growth probably occurred in the first 2 years of the journey.
And that's where I was going. Can you take us through that journey of the past 6 years? I mean, one thing that I give you a lot of credit for is you've always tried to stay ahead of whatever was next. Clearly, very difficult with COVID, but you were constantly moving, pivoting, the overused term, but always trying to stay ahead of what was going on. Talk about the journey for the last 6 years and where you are today.
Yeah, happy to. So this all got started because I was teaching Iron Chef team building classes for groups at Capital One, Dominion, Altria. They would come down to this kitchen at Mise en Place Cooking School in Richmond, Virginia, where I live. Mystery ingredients, no smartphones, no recipes, go. And every time they'd have a blast, yell at them, it'd be like being on a TV show, hands off, chefs, time's up. And I'd rate them on taste, creativity, presentation. And they'd always say, this is so much fun. Is this new? And I'd have to explain, no, this school's been here for 14 years. And they go, oh, but we have nothing to do. That's fun. We always end up going bowling and we're so sick of bowling. And after hearing this for a while, I recognized that no, Richmond and so many cities like it have so many exciting, fun activities like everything from axe throwing to bubble soccer, frisbee golf, aerial yoga, et cetera, for these groups. And so I put together a site. It was just a free service. It was called Party RVA for Richmond, Virginia. And immediately, as I was reaching out to businesses to get info, they said, great, how much does it cost? I want more corporate events. And so I started charging them $200, $500, $1,000 to be on the site before it existed. And quickly got about 20K to create this site from these businesses that were paying before it even had any traction or existed. And so that's how I had kind of figured out that we were onto something here in terms of product market fit. Launched the site and had about 90,000 people use it to find corporate and private events. It snowballed to include bachelor and bachelorette parties, birthday parties, kids parties. And then by the end of the first year into the second, as we were expanding into markets, something happened, and this gets to the pivoting. More than 51% of messages being sent through the platform was asking, hey, I'm not planning a whole big event. I just want to know, can I do this for 2 people, right? Or can I come and do this food tour this Saturday? Or, hey, I'm looking for a date night idea this Friday night. And then our SEO or search engine traffic started to become about 70 to 80% of people who are searching for things like date night and things to do this weekend. So we recognized we should include more public-facing events to this online private events directory. And as we started to pull that in, we were pulling it in from Facebook back when they had a Discovery API before they deprecated it and all hell broke loose. I get ahead of myself. So we decided to add events, and they quickly became the big hit. Facebook turned off its events, but we had realized at that point that we had struck a chord with end users, and started to learn how do we aggregate events from all different places. I approached the investors. I'd raised about $750K at that point. And I'd said, hey, I think that helping people figure out what's happening around them all the time instead of that one time a year when they're planning a private event, I think that's the bigger opportunity. And we got unanimous agreement from our investors that we should go after it, and sold the private event code, contracts, contacts, everything to another company called Eventzingo. And we pivoted strongly into solely an events aggregation service where we figure out all the events that are happening. It's kind of this impossible task of looking at all the different platforms, figuring out what events are high quality or going to be popular, and then we enhance them with great descriptions, great photos. And along the way, met with some people at companies like Hilton, at Kayak, who had said, look, we would love to use this information. Would you ever provide it to us via an API? And as I started to learn about B2B enterprise sales, recognized that's the company that I want to build rather than trying to be B2C. structure this to be B2B. And so that was really our path to, since 2015 as a private event marketplace, pivoting to a B2B enterprise solution, and then raised another 2 million, so about 3 something total, all from local investors in the Richmond and Virginia ecosystem, to move forward with that plan, build a team. And then the pandemic. Don't know if you want me to hop into that right away, or we should take a beat.
We're definitely going to get into that aspect of it, but this is fascinating. Okay, so I think a lot of people talk about product market fit. A lot of people talk about validating your idea. I think a lot of people talk about, analyzing a business and figuring it out. It sounds like, party RVA is the thing. You just do it because you're an Iron Chef teacher, which is very interesting. I feel like I knew that and forgot it, but just to think about that, like that's pretty interesting. So you have an idea, you build a simple website, and then from that, it turns into something completely different. Like, how do you manage that process of understanding, okay, I started this and it works and it's cool, but I'm starting to get this other information and that seems interesting and cool. Like, how do you grasp that something is bigger than originally? Because I think a lot of times people have, like Tim and I were talking the other day, and there was a business aspect, and it was like, this is a cool idea. I don't know that this business can actually be that big. And I think that this person actually thinks that this business can be big, and there's just not a big market. So was there anything in that aspect of like, how do you go through not necessarily the pivot, but the analysis to do the pivot in something like this, where it's completely different if you think about it from, teaching Iron Chef stuff to people who had no idea that thing had been around for 16 years?
I mean, it's a journey. So at first, the idea of $1 million was an obscene amount of money to me. And then when I started to do market research into what this could become, there's no good private events comp, but in the wedding industry, you've got the Knot and Wedding Wire, which were about 115 and 90 million in annual revenue, respectively. And so we were able to extrapolate there that there was a big enough market for the private events marketplace to be investable. But I mentioned some of those stats because, every time you pivot, I think it merits the question why. And when we saw how much user engagement there was, I think what really resonated, a mentor had asked me, what's your North Star? And this was about 2 years in. And I had said, what do you mean? Nobody had asked me that question. He said, what's your North Star? The principle under which all decisions flow and make sense. And I had to think about it. Not too long. I said, well, I think I want to create a product that has the biggest impact for the most amount of people in the shortest period of time. And he said, okay. And from then on, I was like, okay, that has been my North Star. I didn't know it, but it has been. And I was able to make more sense. So when I presented this pivot to investors, I was able to start with, here's what my passion is, and here's what I want to create. And this is why going from private events to public events makes more sense for me. And by the way, here's why I think we can make even more money than before.
Are you stuck at your home office, socially distanced coffee shop, or your fancy all bricked out corner office, wondering why no one can see your business and sales are all over the place? Sounds like you need a pro. That's why I developed the Anomaly Academy. Insert clever copy here. Oh, I guess I was supposed to put something else there. Oops. You can grab access to the Anomaly Academy now at ZachMillerSays.com/Anomaly Academy.